And also joining us this afternoon, OCTA Research President Ranjit Rye. Sir, magandang hapon and welcome back. We just saw you last week.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for inviting us. We're very honored always to be in your show. And yeah, thank you for always utilizing our data.
Yes, sir. Sir, run us through your latest survey.
Okay, so so we have our latest survey, and it was conducted again in the fourth quarter. We're releasing all our fourth quarters historically so in January. So it's a plethora of studies. This study was part of a broader study, a multi-probe study on governance and democracy, and we chose to release these first two probes. No? And the first probe was really to measure the trust in national government's ability to address problems. And majority of Filipinos express trust that the government is able to solve our nation's challenges, no? And that's 55% with 20% distrust and 25% undecided. A second question, which I think has caught the media, interest, is the study on representation. So what's coming out of the OCTA study is that when it comes to our politicians, majority of Filipinos believe that politicians disregard their views. That's 61%. Only 31% believe that elected officials value what people think. And these are our regular voters, no? Also, so these are two different perspectives. One initial perception is that Filipinos trust institutions more than their politicians.
Sir, but ba yung line nyo? I can't understand what you mean by government institutions.
Yeah,
okay, politicians, kasi maraming institutions are actually run by politicians.
Yeah. So here the focus is on, a good question is, it measures two distinct dimensions of democratic legitimacy. So one is institutional capacity. Can government get things done? And majority of Filipinos say yes. So the other one is...
Ano yung definition ng government institution?
Government, national government lang siya. Yun lang yung amin, ano. Yun lang yung amin...
So parang general, the government.
General, that could mean local government, the national government. That could mean not the person, but institutions. A second question, which is unrelated to the first one, no, but is part of this other probe, is to look at how do elected officials listen. Because it talks about the quality of our own democracy also. The context for this is that in the third quarter last year, we came out with a study saying that nearly 8 out of 10 Filipinos support democracy despite its problems. And only 30% think are satisfied with the quality of our democracy. So this is the second layer of questions now, looking at where the problem lies. Is it just in institutions? Obviously it is, no? But they're also looking at the quality of our own political responsiveness of our elected leaders. And here the elected leaders are, not just Congress, but also local government officials.
So, sir, let me look at the first layer first. I don't want to sound cynical, pero parang napaka-supremely optimistic naman ang mga Pilipino.
Oo nga.
Okay, let me put it this way. Kasi,
considering all the scandals happening.
55% of Filipinos trust that the government
you think that's too high?
Will be able to solve their problems.
Yeah.
But we have elections every 3 years.
Parang ano yun, yung niloloko natin, nasa kuweba ka.
But when you look at the numbers, when you look at the granular numbers, no, there is majority, but it's conditional on performance. So that's one thing. So a second thing, siguro takeaway from this is Filipinos distinguish between institutions and politicians. So that's the first thing, no. And there's a third takeaway is that there's a gap, no. You can call it a representation gap, no, across socioeconomic classes, regions. Majority still feel, no, elected officials don't value their views, and even at the local level, no, where you would think that proximity would matter, hindi rin, no? Unresponsive rin ang perception, no. So this is part of a broader study on the quality of our democracy, no. So yun yung so basically our findings show that Filipinos distinguish between government performance and political responsiveness. And majority believe that national government can address these problems. So meaning they believe more in institutions than in politicians. But a large majority feel, in a sense, unheard by their elected officials.
Yes, sir. Sir, I get the distinction naman pero ang ano ko lang, well, going back to Ami's question kanina, di ba, in the end policy is decided on by the politicians and then implemented supposedly by the bureaucracy. I'm just wondering how we can square those two levels and make it
I think one way to appreciate this survey is to take them isolated from one another. We're asking about government's capacity, perception of trust in government's ability to get things done. And majority still believe that that's true. A second question, unrelated to the first one, was really to look at are our politics responsive to electorate? So again, these are all probes, together with other probes we will be releasing also this week, which will look at the quality of our democracy. And I think it's food for thought, especially now that we're talking about dynasties. Here's a number that shows that if majority, the new data has come out that the super majority in Congress is really a super majority of dynasties. And the indictment of those dynasties is they're unresponsive. People at least, in their view, in their perception, feel unheard, as far as these representatives are concerned. And that cuts across not just members of Congress, but also the dynasties that we have in the local government sector, where majority are still political dynasties. So in a sense, this can also be utilized to see some aspect of that. So our countrymen can see, okay, government provides disaster relief, ayuda, and all of this. They can see that institutions largely provide them these services, but they can distinguish between the institution and the politician, who they believe does not listen to them. So nakita niyo yung I think it shows some level of maturity also.
I have the same question as Edib, because the majority trust, on the one hand, you're saying there's majority trust in government performance and institutions, but that's not matched by Filipinos' confidence in their responsiveness of their politicians. Parang there seems to be a disconnect there to me.
Yeah. And they feel it's possible. It's possible. Again, this is not supported by the data yet, but it's possible that Filipinos trust institutions more than their politicians. But the sum total of institutions cannot be just politicians. So that assumption is also not completely correct. Institutions do have some autonomy from politicians. They have their bureaucracy, they have their civil service, both at the local and national government. And there are government people in government, who are responding to everyday crisis, everyday needs of our people. And I think our own countrymen, at least in the survey, saying that, okay, we believe government can still solve our problems, but it's a different story when we talk about trust in our politicians. And I guess this is also a product of the period, the context, fourth quarter, where the political class took a hit because of these scandals, corruption, allegations of corruption.
Yes, sir.
By members of Congress.
Well, that's true, sir. But also,
but two separate studies. Yeah.
Yes, sir. But the bureaucracy also took a large hit. Kasi, for example, your Bulacan First District of officials, they're not politicians, pero
it's been wiped out. That whole First District engineering office. Practically everyone is out.
I agree. But this is what our people are saying.
Yes, sir.
When asked that question, do you still trust in government institutions? Basically, they're saying, at least 55% are saying yes, that government can still solve the country's problems. But on a separate note, separate study saying, do you feel that you're voiceless and faceless as far as our own our representatives are concerned? The answer is yes. Majority is saying yes, and that points to this is from my perspective a problem, no, in our political system where people we are supposed to represent our interests, articulate and aggregate our interests, are the very people who don't listen to us. So I think that's a structural political challenge as far as our system is concerned. So how do we now reform that? No, of course, reform of the party system, ending political dynasties, bringing people back into the governance framework. So the question is, are our politicians responsive to our people? And the answer of the everyday Filipino is no.
Professor, I'll ask you now, as you being a political scientist, at tingin nyo magkakaroon na impact yan, lack of trust in politicians on the elections? Malapit na yan mga 2.5 years na lang.
Well, it's
Pero kaya nag-impact yan?
Sana. I mean, all of our efforts naman is to inform, educate, and empower our voters. In the end, we make democracy work. It's not the politician, neither is it just the institution, and neither are the simple findings of our survey enough, to explain the complex realities of our governance. Again, our goal here was just to measure. At a time when we had, in the view of others and of most people, a political crisis. So how people view democracy. But 4 things. Number 1, Filipinos are pro-democracy. 8 out of 10 are they will not leave democracy or let go of democracy even with all its problems. But despite that, they're unsatisfied with its performance, only 30%. That's the 3rd quarter study. This is the 4th quarter. This is just in December. We asked some questions. What are some of the problem areas? Do you feel that our political elites are responsive? The answer is no. They don't listen to us. We feel unheard. And these are the people, elected officials, supposed to represent us. They're supposed to articulate and aggregate our interests and convert it into responsive, effective government programs. But most people feel that they don't listen. These elite politicians do not listen to them. On the other hand, thankfully, there's still some belief in our government institutions that still they believe, despite all the problems and challenges, that government institutionally can still solve our problems. So all these, you can draw so many conclusions out of this, or possible implications of this. But these are, I think, important findings because, hardly anyone's really measuring it.
Yeah. Prof, just quickly, this 55% trust in the government's ability to solve national problems, how does it compare to previous years?
Okay, this is our first attempt at measuring it. Yes, but we have had some other probes in the past, and it depends on the particular context. Like, for example, towards when we look at particular institutions like Congress, the executive. So this actually squares off with our latest finding for the executive. When you look at the president's performance ratings as president, and you look at government's performance ratings here, they're consistent, They're above 50%. But when you talk about trust in politicians and trust in the president also, who is considered also a politician, mababa. So yun yung parang consistency, they square off. Is that the right term? They're consistent with all the other probes we released in the 4th quarter. So they reinforce that particular picture. That while we are in crisis and that people are in the probes are saying these are the top 10 or top 5 urgent national concerns, they believe that institutions still matter and that the government, in their eyes, can get the job done. But do they trust their politicians? I think from this survey and the other probes that we have had in the past, trust in politicians have really gone down. And here, you can even say Filipinos majority trust institutions more than the politicians that seem to or say that they represent us.
Sir, do we have previous surveys that ask the same question? Just so that we have a reference point. Like for example,
this is their first such attempt.
It's the first attempt.
That is the first attempt, to ask this question. But there are other probes that are sort of reinforce these findings also. So when you look at the survey of, let's say, the House of Representatives, Senate, they've all gone down. So, these are, the bastions of our so-called representative democracy. So again, it's an indictment of our politicians, largely coming from elite families, from dynasties. And by the way, this is the discussion in the last few weeks. No, how do we push reform, in our political system via the anti-dynasty law? And the question of dynasties will be studied in our first quarter here. We're going to study it this Feb. No, we're running another survey to see how people understand dynasties and their support for an anti-dynasty law. So this is all part of a broader probe to look at where we are in terms of governance and democracy at this particular juncture in the life of our country.
Visayas
Kasi
records the
medyo
highest level of
nakakalito
trust.
yung politician and government institutions.
Yeah.
Because they are running the government.
They're too,
They are ruining,
And also,
yeah.
running the government.
and also the fact that,
Hindi ruining.
also the fact
There's
that,
distrust, by the way. There's still a significant distrust. No?
Yeah,
When you look at the data on government, can the government get things done? You're trying to look at institutional capacity versus political responsiveness. Ang laki ng distrust, 20%, and 20% are undecided. And trust is highest in Visayas, but when you look at NCR and balance the zone, it's low. It's below 50%. So these are the nuances. But when you look at the question, are we being heard by our politicians? It's very clear. 61 say they do not, and only 31 say they do. Okay, so there's a 9% that's undecided, and it cuts across socioeconomic sectors. It cuts across regions. So
I feel like there's a bit of a surprise here for us, kasi as I see it nga, it seems like it doesn't match up, although as you clearly explained, it does align, the results do align. But I wonder as well whether there's an element of not understanding what the government's role is really all about. Because I will never forget this. There was one particular survey where people were asked to rate their impressions, I believe, of the top 4 highest officials of the land: president, vice president, speaker, senate president. And one of the responses was that people believed that it's the House Speaker's job to carry out the president's mandate, to follow whatever he says, right? Which is clearly not the case.
Hindi ba?
In an ideal world, diba? In a functioning democracy, these are co-equal branches of government, right? They check and balance each other. Pero people believe that the Senate President, the House Speaker are there to carry out the President's mandate and to do whatever he says. So I wonder as well if there's an element of that here, na hindi lang nila...
It's always possible, because there's 9% in the first question that's undecided. So can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It's very possible, Regina, no? But it's clear here that Filipinos separate institutions from politicians. They believe that government, at least, a small majority, believe that government can solve our problems. Institutions matter. And at the second level, they're more distrustful of our politicians. So this is how they view things. They trust government more than the politician. And these are elected officials. Elected officials. These are Congress and government officials. Very clear.
Hindi nila nakikita na the politician is part of the government.
Yeah.
Politician heads City Hall, the provincial capital,
exactly.
Congress. Malacanang, judiciary lang hindi politician.
Exactly. So, but these are two separate questions, and we just put two probes together in this report, just to show you if Filipinos can separate institutions from institutional capacity from political responsiveness. And these are two different questions. They're not the same. They're not. We just included them in one report. In the next report, we're going to look at satisfaction with democracy and looking at what kind of leaders Filipinos look up to. Are they looking up to, let's say, today is the birthday, no, of birthday of former President Noynoy Aquino, no,
Yesterday.
the consummate liberal and democrat. Are Filipinos wanting that kind of leader, or are they wanting the kind of leader like Rodrigo Duterte, no, the strong ruler? So that's what we're going to release.
Baka
in the next-
kailangan tanungin nyo if they understand what democracy is or what their understanding of
definition of-
democracy.
Correct.
It's a good question. It's a good question. So if
Kasi if you
it's
ask the
procedural,
Duterte
no,
people, they're going to say that it is part of their democratic space yung pinagagagawa nila pag tinanong mo sila.
yeah.
Hindi mo nila sasabihin na authoritarian sila or something like
Yeah.
that.
No, but you can find out from surveys because we have a world value survey, and some of the questions we ask here are really just repetitions of that global survey, which really shows almost the same pattern that people are pro-democracy, but they're very unsatisfied with the quality of democracy, whether in the United States or in the Philippines. No? And number two, we're still looking at the data, but there is also a strong belief among so-called supporters of democracy for strong leaders.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that's the reality here in the Philippines.
We'll have to.
That's a statement. Those findings are actually interesting to look at because we're now all looking at 2028.
Correct.
And we're looking at this whole campaign for political dynasties. And now we're seeing these dynasties are not responsive.
Correct. Well,
aside from all the problems that they provide, or they create for our political system, this study shows that people are not heard.
We'll tackle that another time. Thank you so much for joining Storycon and breaking down the results of your latest survey, OCTA Research President Ranjit Rye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.